action of the of other countries that have
Sure.
adopted socialistic policies.
Walter E. Williams, I know you support law and order. I support the rule of law as well. But the over-militarization accelerated under Obama now. All these training manuals where they say the big enemy of the Pentagon is the Tea Party veterans, gun owners. I'm sure you're aware of that. If not, I can play you some news clips where they say, we need the MRAP tanks for the veterans when the veterans aren't out there doing anything. What do you think of this attempt by the Democrats to basically turn the military into a domestic tool?
Yeah, well, it's that's what socialism needs. That in order to for government to be able to impose its will, it needs force because a lot of people will not go along with it voluntarily. And then also, if you notice that the very people in our country who are the most anti-gun or anti-Second Amendment, they are the very people who are trying to take over our lives.
They're the ones armed to the teeth. They're the ones with bodyguards like Michael Moore, but you and I, we can't have a gun.
Oh, that's absolutely right. And the point is that what a lot of Americans do not know is that the founders of our nation, they did not give us the Second Amendment in order for us to go deer and duck hunting. They explicitly said, and it's in my column this week, they explicitly said that we want the American people to be armed as a last resort against the betrayal of their freedom by their representatives and rulers.
Wow, we got one final segment after this quick break with Walter E. Williams, walterewilliams.com. His books are all bestsellers. They're complex, they're historical, but they're also an easy read. I'd give them to your high school kids, you name it. It's just so important. I just gave Rush's book to my daughter, who's 10, The Brave Pilgrims, to get a more accurate perspective on what's going on. There's an attack on any type of Americana culture. Certainly America's got a lot of bad in our past, but our ideals were the greatest, and we made the greatest strides. That's why the system's attacking it. What they're replacing it with, as Dr. Williams said, is a bunch of Roman bread and circuses. I'm going to have a wild card here. I'm going to have him come back in the last 6 minutes and kind of cover whatever he wants to cover. I've been asking the questions so far. WalterEWilliams.com. And you, of course, can find his column in many newspapers around the country, or you can request that it be in your paper as well. Stay with us. Well, he's Professor Dr. Walter E. Williams, WalterEWilliams.com. And he's on with us, broadcasting worldwide. In the 6 minutes we've got left, sir, there's so many subjects we could cover, but I'd like to give you the floor to host the show here for a moment and get into what you think is the heart of the matter.
Well, well, one of the things I think that I always tell people say, well, what do you try to do, Walter? Well, I say I'm trying to sell our fellow Americans on the moral superiority of individual freedom and personal liberty, and its main ingredient, limited government. And it's rather surprising what has happened to our country. And just let me give you an idea when I say that there's a lot of contempt for the United States Constitution and contempt for the ideas of liberty. In 1794, Congress appropriated $15,000 to help some French refugees. James Madison, the acknowledged father of the United States Constitution, the father of the Constitution, and a former president, he stood on the floor of the House irate, and he said, and I'm virtually quoting him, he says, "I cannot undertake to lay my finger on that article in the Constitution that authorizes Congress to spend the money of their constituents for the purposes of benevolence." Now, if you look at the federal budget today, 2/3 to 3/4 of it is for the purpose of benevolence. And you ask the question, and also Madison said, charity is not a function of government. Now, any person running for the presidency today who would make the same statement that James Madison, as well as other founders, made, the American people would run them out of town on the rail. That is, the American people have contempt for the great ideas and the great ideas of liberty that made us the richest and the freest country in the world. And you know, to give you another example, if I said, if I'm running for the governor, if I'm running for the Senate in Texas, and I go back and forth across the state, and I say, look, my fellow Texans, I've read the United States Constitution. I know what the Constitution authorizes. I know what Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution says. if you elect me to the Senate, don't expect for me to bring back aid to higher education, highway construction, prescription drugs, and all these other programs. The question is, do you think the people of Texas would elect me to the United States Senate?
Texas might, but probably only 2 or 3 other states. But it'd be a fight. I think Texas understand that we would just keep all of our money here and decide to do what we would want to do instead of giving the feds all the control. But most states should be voted out, though.
Well, see, I think that if I as senator don't bring back money to Texans, it doesn't mean that Texans will pay a lower federal income tax. All that it means is that the money will go to Oklahoma instead. That is, once legalized theft begins, it pays for everybody to participate.
No, you're right. So, we can't get out of it because our money will just go somewhere else.
That is absolutely right. And so that's the tragedy of in our country, that it pays for people to engage in legalized theft. That is, it pays for people to use the power of their office, it pays for people to elect people who will use the power of their office to take what belongs to one American and bring it back to them.
They have wired fraud into the system, and now they're just expanding it. What about Obama saying he may raise taxes by executive power?
Well, he has no constitutional authority to do that. And then, a lot of people say, well, look, the Bush tax cuts, the Bush tax increases, the Obama tax increases. According to the Constitution, the president has no taxing and spending authority.
That's right.
Only the Article 1 gives Congress the taxing and spending authority. That is, the president cannot spend one dime that Congress does not first appropriate.
Walter Williams, amazing. WalterEWilliams.com. Hope you'll come back soon. Have a great weekend, sir.
Thank you.
I'll be back this Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. live, Lord willing.